Well, hello, beautiful artisans. Welcome to Echo Art with Carmella-T. We have a really good video today. We're starting stitching. I just started stitching it, and I said, you know what? I'm going to jump on and share. So this is the Boro Sashiko Inspired Hat. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that hat, and in case you want to make one. And but before we even begin the project, I want to welcome everyone who's new to the channel. Thank you so much for jumping on board. It's totally free. Join the art community. We encourage each other. We come up with different ideas and suggestions. And we give our earth a little hug by creating with recycled materials, fabrics, and supplies. And if you're coming back, thank you so much for coming back. You are the reason I'm here. So with that, I want to share with you the bag that I have decided to use for our yo-yo, our fabric yo-yo decorative project that we're going to begin very soon. Now we'll finish up the hat and then we'll start the bag. Now I was going to just kind of work on the hat and the bag in the same video. So give me an idea what you think about that idea, because what it would be is I'm working on a little bit of the project. I'm showing you where I'm at on one project, and then in the same video we kind of go right to the next project. Now for people who are following the multiple projects, they're gonna love a video like that. If it's too distracting and you don't think it's good, let me know. I would love to know what you're thinking on that. So I'm always up to try different ideas. But this bag had this strap on it. And if you look at the strap, this side was broken and this side has a tiny little hook, and it was just on like that, and then this side was tied. So I untied it and then I unhooked it, and yeah, I put that to the side. Now I measured the bag, and the bag is measuring about 11 height by 10 inches. It's beautiful. Now the other thing, if you're getting a bag, okay, this is just what I think, and it doesn't necessarily have to be this at all. Whatever bag you have at home most likely will work. Now consider a couple of different things. You can sew the yo-yos on, and you know me, I love to sew more than I like a gluing project. However, depending on the fabric of your material, whatever it is you have for your bag, you do have that option certainly to glue. And nowadays they have very special glues that will work beautifully. So, but I want to show you, I turned this inside out, and it's beautiful. So you want to turn, it's just thought, turn it inside out, unless you can completely see, but that way you can see, you know, look, is it torn? There's no tears on this. Now this has to be maybe just a little dabbed with a little warm water and very light detergent, and because there's just a very little like water stain there. But this is a lovely, and this says 100% cotton made in Nepal. It's made in Nepal. So this is a really beautiful piece of work. And you see, I'm going to turn it back so we can just take a really quick look at the design. So the design is already on here, you see, but it's very worn. It's almost like it's silk screened, or maybe even, I don't think it's painted just by the feel of it. It might be silk screened. And then the back is blank. So this is a perfect type of bag to upcycle, jazz it up a little bit, make something new. And these are items that you can sell at Art and Crafts if you want, or make for your everyday and use yourself or gift somebody with. So this is going to be, if you're preparing with me, this is what I'm doing. This is a bag that I selected. So it's all cotton. And as for the materials for yo-yos, I have an idea, but I haven't chosen them yet. I'll share that with you next video. So in this video, I wanted to share with you, you know, this hat has many pieces to it. And we had it here on the styrofoam model head. I'm going to put it back on there. And it has this is a piece of art sculpture. Okay, this is soft sculpture. This is artware. It truly is. There's no doubt about it. If I selected any more pieces of fabric to put on here, or denims, I don't know, I'd have it up to here. Now, a couple of things. When I started to sew, I started at the seam. I went up here. I started up here in the middle a little bit. I came down, and then just like you do with your sewing machine, I reinforced stitches up, and I'll be doing more of that as we go on. And I continued with some whip stitching. I did a little sashiko stitching over to the side. And I'm going to show you how I'm doing this whip stitching. Super simple, but I want to point a few things out to you just in case you're making your hat and you're trying to decide how to do it. So with this hat, we're going to be putting the lining in after. Sometimes, as you know, I do the panels, and we're going to do another hat with the panels very soon. But we do the panels. I typically will put the lining on the panel before I build the hat. That way the lining is on each piece. It's on the crown, it's on the panels. With this one, there's just too many pieces to put a piece of lining on each piece, so I don't have to worry about adding a lining at the end. At the end, it will be easier to add a lining with this type of the way I'm building this particular hat. So anyway, I wanted to point that out. The other thing I want to point out is you start with your about 10, select what you want, 9, 10, or 11 inch diameter crown. But whatever you're selecting, depending on where you want it to come, like this hat is coming down to my brows. From the tip of this hat down, I have approximately 7.5 to 8 inch height. It's the same with your fabric hat, and you want to pinch it at the top, and we're going to do that. So I'll just take this off here. You want to pinch it at the top. You kind of want to just gently, because you don't want everything to fall out of place. And you want to measure. Now, does it have to be 7.5? No, it does not. It depends what you are making. So look, this is about 8. Whoops, let me hold it straight. Sorry about that. So there we go. We got about 8, maybe about 8.5. So this is going to be, in which I want it to be, a very easy fitting hat. I want it to come down just like it does on the model and be able to be moved around easily. Now, the other thing to consider when you're making your hat is your lining. You know, if you use a nice thin lining, it will not take up so much of the inner diameter. If you use a thicker lining, it will. So you could go from, like, you're starting out with a 22-inch hat, and because you used a fleece, you know, you're losing, instead of 1/8 of an inch or less or this and that, you're losing like an inch or whatever it is. So you want to consider that. And I would say, if you're like me, you're not an expert sewist, but you're more of a creative sewer, you test it out a little bit with before you sew everything together, okay? So with that, I want to share with you how I am sewing the seams on this hat. So I'm just going to tip this a little bit. There we go. And so you see here is a seam. And my plan is, I'm going to take this out as I go along. My plan is to sew my seams, and then I'm going to come back around and consider more decorative stitches. Now, as we know, Sashiko stitching originates from, oh, I got to pin this, see, that moved on me. And if you pin your hat in place, it makes it so much easier to really work with. I keep mine on the model head. Now, typical historical Sashiko stitching, they're holding the piece and moving it along and doing 2 or 3 stitches at a time. But because we're working on our seam, we're doing just the 1 stitch at a time. And because I'm doing whip stitches, I could have gone up this way and maybe done 2 or 3 at a time. But and not because of I'm trying to do it quickly, just because that is how we do our Sashiko stitching. So I'm taking my time. I want to make sure that I have my seams. Now here I have a couple of seams together because there are no rules with how you are doing your Sashiko stitching. You can overlap, you can underlap, but the one thing you want to do is make sure you're catching all of your seams. Now, what I typically do, because in this particular hat, there are many seams, I will be coming back around, double checking them. Now, the other thing when you're doing Sashiko stitching, because it is not embroidery, you are pushing the needle. So you're not using a hoop and you're not pulling the needle, but you are doing hand sewing and you are pushing the needle through. So, and if any of your pieces move, that's okay. This might be the trickiest little part of building your hat with your patches, is that maybe they are, unless you do, so the other way you could do this is how I do it. You know, I put it all together. I gotta tell you, and you know that we've done that with the quilts. I will lay the whole design. It's like I have to see the whole design. But typically it's patch, sew, patch, sew, patch, sew. So you can certainly do that too. And there's ways to do that. You can lay out your patch. You can take a photo of how you are laying everything out, and you can come back. I like to just do it one piece at a time, but I don't like to take my whole design apart after I've gotten it just the way I think that I want it. Now here we have a very, quilted seam. That's a quilted seam. So as I'm doing my whip stitching, I'm like, I feel like I need to kind of hold that so I can just work in the surface. So now there's a couple ways that you can stitch. You can work in the surface of your denim, and working in the surface, the Sashiko needle is the best for that, in my opinion. I do have Sashiko needles. I will pull them out when I want to focus on just the surface. However, they are very, very, very sharp. I'm telling you, they're sharp. And I end up really sometimes jabbing myself accidentally. But for this particular hat, what I'm doing, I have an embroidery needle, and it's not super wide. It's just enough so I can get my lacy crochet thread through the eye. So it's a thinner type of embroidery needle. And that way I can do my stitching a little easier. And then when I come to this piece right here, so I'm going to put another, let me put this, I'm going to put the camera down a little bit so you can see right here. I have one stitch to go. So I'm going to do that before I get to that seam. Okay, now I'm at the seam. Now I have a choice. I can do a couple of different things. I can go right around that seam. I can do whip stitch right around that seam. Many times I do that. And or I can work in the surface of the seam. Now I'm holding it and I'm coming over to, okay, so I went right in the surface. I didn't go down. I didn't put my needle down so that it's going in on the other side. I'm just working in that surface. And you're like, well, Carmella, not everything is straight. But that is the concept, for those of you who know, that is the concept of Boro Sashiko stitching, freeform stitching. From the model that we're using, or the way that the method that we're using, or I'm using from the 1400s. So that's why you don't have to worry about it being absolutely perfect. And that's the absolute beauty of it. So you see there, I worked in that seam right there. I just stayed in the top part of it. Okay, now a lot of times what I do is I like to just kind of do some, here I'll show you. Well, actually I'm going that way, but I like to do, I'm going to do this. Now I am going down. I put the needle all the way down. I want to catch all the fabrics. I'm bringing it all the way back up because I'm going to go around that seam. And I'm just, in my mind, I'm securing that section before I move on. Okay, so now I'm going to take this needle or pin out, and now I'm going back to the top of that seam, and I'm going to show you here, and I'm coming up. I did a big stitch around the seam because you can choose any stitches you want, and I am coming across. Now you see all of this is not sewn, it's not together, so I'm going to focus on just that section. You see here, this piece will still be loose, that's okay, but I'm going to focus on just right here. So I'm going to stitch that and then show that to you. So anyway, like I said, this particular hat has a lot of pieces to it right now. So I'm going to do some running stitches. And I'm going through a few layers of fabric. So I'm going to put this down so you can see right here. Now I have I have this layer and I have this layer. So that's just how this hat is built. So sometimes I like to focus on just catching the top layer of what I have here. So, but this is going through very easily. So that's lovely. And I'm just doing some running stitches. And you're saying, well, Carmella, you're not doing 2 or 3 at a time. Well, it's because you have that choice. You do have the choice of selecting the stitches that you want as you go along to secure your art piece. Now, if you're following a pattern of Sashiko stitching, which today there are contemporary, very intricate patterns out there. You want to, of course, be very mindful about your stitching. However, if you're doing free form, like what we're doing today, you can be a little bit, you can use diversity. You can be a little bit more daring on what type of stitching you're doing. The main thing is this: you want to make sure that you are securing your fabrics. So if you do work, for example, in the top layer, what you want to do is come back around and you want to double check and make sure that, here, I'm going to pull this out so I can show you. You want to double check on the inside. Okay, here. You only see a couple of stitches. You don't see the stitches I just did because I worked in the top layer of the denim. Denim is woven with multiple layers, so you can work in the top layer. However, pieces like this, you want to make sure that when you get over there, those are completely secure. And you know that we go through and do machine stitching, so this hat will be reinforced as we go along with machine stitching. So with that, I hope that that helps you. For those of you who are out there building your hats, and I know there's a few of you, please feel free to ask me questions as we go along, and I'll show you my hat as it progresses. And so today's Saturday, and you know I'll be back on. Now that I've got a few projects I am honing in on, we'll be going through them together. So with that, you have an absolutely beautiful rest of the day. If you have any questions, and wait till you see, this hat's going to be gorgeous. I mean, I totally love this right here, this aesthetic. Totally love it. And up here, I keep feeling like maybe I'm going to put another little patch. I don't know, but we'll see. So with that, I hope you have a beautiful evening. I'm sending you love and light, and we'll see you in the next one.